Tonight's guest, this is Doug Erb and his sidekick here, Jim Lewis. Doug was born and raised in Springfield, growing up on the west side of town, riding bikes to Surplus City, looking for golf balls at Horton Smith Golf Course, buying comics at Silverleaf, and later on probably wine and that sort of thing. Fast forward, during college at Southwest MSU, he strived to be an almost average art and design major. He graduated and moved to Los Angeles, where he designed a lot of stuff. He still does what he has always done. He has done several local albums from the Morels and the Dog People. While in L.A., he did album art for Bare Naked Ladies and for the film The Mighty Wind. Doug is also a collector and seller of record albums, as well as a comic book artist. Please welcome tonight's guest, Doug Erb.
Hello?
Our mics are on now.
Okay, Doug, let's hear about your life story.
All right. That's the only question we're going to have tonight. What do you want to know?
Well, did you grow up here?
I'm a West Sider. I grew up out by Horton Smith Golf Course. Went to Sherwood Elementary, Cherokee, Jarrett, Parkview, and SMS. And
so you graduated from SMS with a degree in graphics?
Did. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it was, I liked SMS a lot. And they recently tore down the Art Annex where we spent most of our time. But yeah, I liked it.
So what were some of your influences here in Springfield? Did you like to hang out at any place?
Well, I was telling Jim and I we're friends, of course. And I was telling him in college, I would spend a lot of time out at like, Humphrey Clinkers or down Amador Mining Company. Duckburg was earlier than that. I was telling Jim also that I've loved comics for years, and so Dennis Budd had a comic store called Duckburg, which was on the SMS campus pretty much. And so I'd ride over there, and I'd met Dennis and his crowd, and we had a softball team, and those guys kind of influenced my musical tastes a lot. So they were way into the Skeletons and the Morels and the Couch Dancers, and then.
So did you produce some flyers and things like that, or any album
and
covers
Dog
at that
People,
time?
Yeah, I would. You'd go see the bands, and they'd figure out you're an artist, and or you'd say, hey, I can do your flyer if you like the band. And so that got me into doing a lot of that work for those guys. And, knowing the Morels and the Dog People and the Mistakes guys and all the local music that was going on when I was in college.
Joey Skidmore, maybe?
Joey Skidmore, yes. The infamous, and Joey's a great guy, and he was also really into comic books. But I did his first album, and that was the first LP I ever designed. And I won't forget that.
So from there, what did you do? Did you move?
From there, let me think. Okay, I lived on Walnut Street, and we're in the house that Gilardi's is in, and up in the turret, in the attic space. And after college, I did stay here about, maybe a year. And then somebody I didn't know who was a friend of Dennis Budd's worked for a comic company out in Los Angeles. And he said, why don't you come out and work out here? And I thought, that's a great idea. So I went out to LA, and outside, it was like 45 minutes outside of Los Angeles in Agoura. And the company was in a house, and it was, it's independent comics. So it was just a bunch of guys putting these comics out and getting them distributed, and it was a great job for about a year. And then, I never drew comics really. That's a kind of a fallacy that people think like, oh, you do comic books like that. That's a whole different level of drawing to be able to draw a comic book. So I do illustration work sometimes. But at the comic place, I was doing paste up and coloring covers and stuff. So I worked there about a year and quit that and went freelance and started designing music packaging at that point. I got jobs with mostly, I had a friend from the comic company went to work for Rhino, and she got me a lot of work. And at that point, design work was done on a desktop with Ruby Lith and pen and ink and ordering type out. Now everything's done on the computer. And so I was in the era of that transition to computer and learned on the job. At one point I started freelancing at Sony and was learning just like, hey, they had just gotten computers in the building. And we just took it a day at a time figuring out how to do this stuff. And computers at that point had like 3 gigs of memory on them. So if you were designing something and you needed to make a change, it could take hours for the change to happen. It's not instantaneous. And I will always remember that as well, just that learning on the job. And I still just work that way. Kind of like, what's this button do? So
while you were at Sony, you designed quite a few albums.
I did.
What were some of your first projects, or Rhino, or whatever?
I just want to say that when you're designing a record package, it's not like, I came up with that idea, and I took those pictures, and I, picked out everything. Maybe if it's for somebody local, you'd do that. But in the corporate world, there's the art director, there's the designer, there's a production artist, there's a marketing, there's some VP in New York asking for a change. So it's just it can be a mess. And so if you see something like, let's see.
Do that one.
Like this, you go like, oh yeah, Doug designed that. I didn't take that picture. I didn't design that logo. What I designed was the typography mainly. And I did production on this, but this was one of the first records we did on computer, and the art director had to compose this image on the cover, and that's what would take hours, like to ghost that girl into the dirt. And it was...
And that's what they wanted,
It was a big
right?
project, yeah.
That's what the artist wanted.
Well, I hope they wanted that, because that's what they got. Yes, the bands... Alice in Chains at that point there's different levels of bands, and they were A-list bands. So they could kind of get the photographer they wanted, tell the company what they wanted to do versus the company telling them how they wanted it to look. And each project has its own, it's its own animal every time. So, but I just wanted to make sure that you all knew I didn't just do it all and tell the bands what to do. It's very rare that anything like that happens.
The band's like, you want to get their input on what direction they want to go, typically.
Well, I'll tell you something else. I hardly met this band at all. I never met Lane Staley, who's the singer. And the art director worked with them and set up the photo shoots. And then she'd come to me and go, here's the photos, the pictures the band picked. So, and here's the lyrics, and then you lay it all out. So that is mostly what I do.
Did you meet any
As
of the
far
band?
as packaging, I've met bands before. Yes, I've met some of the band. Later in their career, they did a box set, and one of the guys was very involved in that, and we had to have it done in like 2 weeks, which is crazy for this stuff. And so he came in and stayed with us and went through everything. And that was a unique experience. But, you know, there's not a wall between me and the band. I do meet the bands and talk to them. But like I say, every project's different. I didn't meet Roy Orbison because he was dead when I did his package. So
this is the new one? Bare Naked
I
Ladies?
think that's their most recent album, yeah. So this project I got from, I already moved back to Springfield when I got this project, and one of the product managers at Sony that I worked with, which Leah Reed, which is a great person, she called me and said, hey, and she was working for a management company called Shelter, who managed Bare Naked Ladies, and she said, I think we need you for this project. I'm like, thank God. Because, you know, I don't find this kind of work in Springfield, and I don't seek it out, really. I don't, like, I've got to make contacts internationally to continue doing packaging because I've kind of done it. It's not, I love it, but it's like, I've got twins, and raising these kids takes most of my time. But I got this job, and once again, I got the photos and everything, and I designed it. And one of the band members was more involved in the artwork, so I did talk with him a lot and ended up doing a solo record with him, which was great. But they're a super nice band because they're Canadian. But it's so true, and I'm just so happy to have worked with them, and no complaints, and also to work with the great management, you know, and that means so much versus anybody that I'm sure you all have experienced bad bosses, and that happens all the time in this world too. So it's just the reality wherever you go.
What's the name of the band?
This is the Bare Naked Ladies. Sorry about that. I mean, we can read it up here. I'm sure you... We don't have a PowerPoint tonight. Jim asked me, I think this week, do you have a PowerPoint? Like, I don't even know how to do one of those.
Well, neither do I.
But, you know, when I come back next year, we'll have a PowerPoint. And we'll bring bands, actual bands.
Now, you saw the Bare Naked Ladies recently, didn't you?
Yes, they played, actually, there's a theater near Lake of the Ozarks. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a pretty big place. Yeah, they played down there, and I took my daughters, and I've taken them before. And Jim was asking me, he said, what, you know, tell them about, this was their first big concert a number of years back. And you just try to impress your kids, and they're like, oh, okay, all right, we'll go, I guess. It's dad's music. And then they go up to we went backstage before the show, I think, and they go up to the singer. They're like, we've never heard you before. So this was at the Starlight. And he comes out during the show and he goes, we met Gene and Sally today. They've never heard of us.
Perfect.
This is great. But they, I like to think they enjoyed the show.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Yeah. What
Well-
next, Jim? Any questions?
What was your first concert?
Good question.
Jim asked, it was Jim. No, it was, Jim just asked me that question before we got up here, or just when we got up here. It was the Carpenters at the Shrine Mosque. Now, my sister's here tonight, Cynthia Erb, and I believe she was there with me and my dad, and I believe we were going to see the Grassroots before that, but they canceled. So never saw the Grassroots. But we also saw Danny Bonaducci at the Shrine Mosque. So, right, Dave Madden. And we saw Edgar Winter. Were you at that? And Rick Derringer at the fair. These are our early concerts. And I've seen tons of bands since then. That's why I have hearing aids. That's one reason. Which I don't like that much, but.
You first went to LA, was that during the, maybe the psychedelic poster era?
No, I'm not that old. But it was during late 80s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you never got into the psychedelic design like?
Oh, I love that. But I wasn't there doing that in the 60s. I was born in 61.
Right.
So.
Well, they're still doing it,
Oh, I know. Right. Who is it? Wes Wilson? He did this, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I did not know that he was doing that. I wish I would have been there. I never met him. But, so, that's another, he's a famous poster artist from San Francisco. From here, I think, but did the work. Oh, he moved here. Okay. Yeah. World.
Posters for my club down in Reed Springs.
Oh, did he really? Wow. That's awesome.
I've got a set for you.
Okay. I would love that. So anyway, what did you want to know now, Jim?
Well, let's
Jim?
see what I want to know. Let's see.
There must be something else.
Well, since you've been back, what are some of the projects you've done since you came back from
Okay.
LA?
Well,
And you're doing the Route 66 show, correct? Record show?
yes. I'm a multitasker, and I never really finish anything. And so twice a year, a friend of mine and I put on the record show at Relics. And we love it. It's coming up the end of this month. When I moved back here to my dad had passed away and my mom had Alzheimer's. And so I moved back to take care of her. And was ready to leave LA anyway. I just couldn't, I was not a person that could get ahead in Los Angeles. And so I came back here and I continued to have a little bit of work trickle in while I was first back. And then I just kind of let that go by the wayside. And I started painting and pursued painting for a couple years locally, which was fun. And, the local art scene is good. And then I phased that out again when I started doing more design work. And then Soup Granda contacted me. We've been friends for a long time, and he wanted me to do a kid's book with him. And I said, sure, I'll do that. It took me years to draw that thing. And Soup is just the nicest guy. He's like, okay, do you need some more money? I mean, he didn't just keep giving me money, but it wasn't about the money at all. But it was just a hard project, and that's what I mean about drawing comic books. I realized I've got to draw this character again and again and again. And it was just, I don't want to say a pain, but it was really hard for me. Because I like to draw one thing and then move on, or paint one thing and then go to an estate sale. People wonder why I am always looking for records and comic books and odd, Springfield history. I love. So my house is a lot of stacks, and I'm sure there's going to be more. I keep thinking I'm clearing it out, and I move like this many records and then get this many back in the week later. So. I'm trying. So.
Let's have some questions. Or talk rock and
Any
roll.
questions?
The record collection, collecting stuff, I know you and my old buddy Mike Hildebrand are a long time.
Right. Yeah.
And I was, years ago, I became amazed, surprised, and astonished at the number of records that have gone through his hands.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
A million.
A million? For Mike?
Well, 45s, easy.
Oh, yeah. So my friend Mike Hildebrand, who we're talking about, he actually was an initial partner in this record show. And he retired from it, but he's a genius about 45s. He knows the label, the matrix number probably. And I find that if you buy a box of 45s, you go through them, you kind of think, okay, this is such and such. Then a week later you go back and you're like, what was in there? I can't retain that information. And Mike could. He focused on that stuff.
Well, I know he was known internationally for his collection, I know that. But,
Right.
Again, I was just amazed at the sheer numbers that he dealt with at that time.
Uh-huh. And he was always, guys like us are always on the hunt. I try not to be, but.
Well, you bring up Mike Hildebrand. That's when I met Doug.
Right.
I had quite a record collection, probably about 1,000. That's not a lot, but it seemed like it. But I needed to get rid of them because I didn't have any room to store them. I mean, I was moving from one house to the other. And so Mike came over and looked through them and gave me a really fair price. And so he brings Doug over to haul them out in the pickup.
Right.
So that's how you and I met.
I was like, wait a minute, I wish I would have been here first. Yeah. Which is every record collector's thing, Why wasn't I here first? Or somebody found out I had gone to look at some records on or they didn't know who it was, and it was me, and they're like, who was that guy that went to look at those records first, and they eventually figured it out. It's cutthroat.
See Lloyd's record collection?
I didn't, but I think Justin Kirby got a lot of that, and I know it was a great collection. And I think same thing with Wonderly. He had a big collection. And Joe Horton had a question, but he's got records.
I'm going to state the obvious that I'm confused.
Okay, you're confusing.
One of the things I'm confused about is, a lot of people here are probably Facebook friends with you, and I see pictures of your daughters. They're twins,
My daughters are twins, yes.
the same father.
Yeah,
One of them is about 9 feet tall.
they're actually my mom. They're my mothers. No, they're the same. Same mother. Yeah.
I'm still confused.
Okay, I know.
Great records with you, and
Right, right. Yeah. My daughters look very different, but they are very different, but they're best friends when they're not enemies.
Last week I met a guy, went to his house to look at a stereo amp, and he showed me in his garage, and he had matching crates, wooden crates of records that he had bought at an estate sale, like 2000, and he didn't care about music, he bought them for the crates.
Was that a classical collection?
Yeah, and
Because I was there when he got those records. I don't know him personally, but I said, what you got? I saw him. I went on the last day. This is really deteriorated. I went on the last day to this estate sale because it was just a bunch of sealed classical records, which nobody really wants unless they love classical music. I mean, not to put classical down, Susanna. And he was coming out, and I thought, I'm going to go buy a couple more of these. And he was bringing the whole collection out. I said, what's going on? I said, how much did you pay for those? He said, $25. And he just wanted the Peaches crates that they were in. Yeah, he had way more than, 2,000, that's right.
there's a lot of records.
Yes, yeah.
Of course, I looked through them, and I recognized them.
And probably everybody that came to see him would go like, is there any Elvis or Beatles in there? That's the crazy question.
He didn't know what to do.
Never. So,
What do you think is the most famous album cover you've worked on, or what is the one you're most proud of?
well, it's funny because I know, Michael Jackson albums would come through our office. My boss designed Michael Jackson records. So, and you end up having your name in the credits. Like my name is in one of those records, and it's like, my name's out there printed millions of times just because it was in that record. It's just kind of like, wow, that's kind of cool. But personally, the Alice in Chains stuff is the most well-known, and I always tell people that Mary Maurer, who was the art director for them, worked with Lane and the band pretty closely. So she was the one that helped them with their vision. Until there's one over there, I think, the one that's just self-titled with the dog on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
And there's an interesting story in that one because she did a photo shoot. Lane, the singer, said, I want a three-legged dog on the cover. And it was called, the album wasn't officially called this, but a lot of people refer to it as Tripod. And so she did a photo shoot with a guy and found a three-legged dog. Yeah, this is the one. So found the film, did this big shoot, and sent the comps to Lane, and he goes, no, I just wanted to use you to use the fax that I sent you. So this photo, he faxed this picture in, and the only thing we really did, we did some comps where the cover was green, or the eyes were different. The eyes ended up being green. And then if you bought the CD, it came in a lime green case or a purple case. And so we had comps, that was released. But what I did on this is I designed the logo, and then, hold on just one sec. Let's see if you can show the inside of that. So the inside, just the gatefold. There's this artist here. I'm embarrassed to tell you I don't remember his, let me see. I can't remember his name. This is an old plates. from probably the 1800s. It was a clip art book. And so I brought that into this mix. And if I don't want to do this, but on the interior sleeves, they're interspersed through in there. And you don't need to pull that out, Jim. But anyway, I felt like, okay, I do contribute to these packages. You know, I play it down because there's just a lot of people involved, a lot of times, so, and a lot of good people. So, but also, another thing about this one, so this is a three-legged man on the back cover. And this came out, I think, it was a Ripley's, picture in a Ripley's. And so we did the package, everything got approved, went to print, and then Ripley's got a hold of us and said, you can't use that picture. And so they had, I don't know what they paid them, but they got the rights to use it. And but there was a little bit of drama before they had those rights.
Whose music is that?
This is Alice in Chains too, yeah. And I did see them live. They were great. I saw so many bands in LA. I loved it. I was not married at the time. Guys in my department, we'd all, you know, it was a good time. I saw Oasis at the Troubadour, which is smaller than this room. That was their first show in LA, and now they're playing huge stadiums. It's like, wow, you know, you see the story arc of these bands. You see a lot of them go this way too. But anyway, Joe, did you have a question?
Mike sort of stole my question, so I'll throw in another question. It's not sort of related to your first concert, but what was your favorite concert?
Wow, that's a good question. My least favorite was Bob Geldof. It's true. My favorite, I've had a lot of favorites, but I have to say, you know, I don't know, I know why, but I've seen Elvis Costello a ton of times. But these days I like Gillian Welch a lot, and Dave Rawlings, and Joe and I went to see them. I loved seeing Rage Against the Machine, because they just had so much energy. The crowd was just going like this. The Who. I don't know.
Which Who tour?
The Who.
Which tour was it? Do you know?
Well, Entwistle was still alive. He died a couple months after I saw him, if that is an indication of the time. And then I saw him do Quadrophenia in Tulsa after he had passed away. And that was one of my favorite concerts as well. Radiohead. I mean, there's just so many. There's a level that you can just go, that show was great. I never saw anybody, you know, nothing crazy ever happened at any shows I saw. The craziest thing was when I was driving to see Oasis in town, and they said that's been canceled. So, not in Springfield, but in LA. Yeah.
What was so bad about Bob Geldof?
Where do I begin? I don't know. I almost think that I just decided to myself that this is the worst show I've ever seen, and just I kind of feed on that kind of thing, like just start making jokes about it, and in this case they were pretty true. I don't remember any of his songs, and he was kind of pretentious, and I don't know. I remember a chubby accordion player in a tank top, and it was just like not my scene. Let's see. Yes, Heather. You know what, Heather, I just want to mention that I really appreciate that I can almost say everybody's name in this room. So yes, Heather. Heather works at Casper's, I think.
And what did you contribute to those projects, and what did you like about it, and how was it working with specific members of our
That's a great question. So when I moved back, Lou asked me to do the Last Morels album. And he said, do whatever you want. Just do what the kids like. Make it hip like the kids like. And so, and he said, you know, I'll always remember, he said, I hear your dad has cancer. And Lou had cancer too. And it was just, you know, he was a good friend. And he'd come over and look at the cover, the band would come over, they go, that's great. And at that point, you know, like Shelley knew those guys well too. I mean, they're just your buddies. But when I got to know them was at Amador Mining Company. And Lou said, come on, I'll get you in. And I don't remember specifically how I met Lou. It was probably through the Dennis Budd crowd. And they loved that band. I remember, I think there was a club called the Zebra Room or something like that. Do you remember that? Where Petite 3 was? And the Skeletons played there. Huh?
Safari Room.
Safari Room. Zebra, yeah. Safari. That's it. Yes. But I remember that show and many more. And I mentioned the Couch Dancers because that's where I met Joe Terry. And their lead guy was this guy named Jay Floyd, and he was fantastic, but he was also left of center, and he was just put on the best shows. The Dog People, Wonderly would always say, hey, smoking the herb, you know. It's just like, that joke never got old to him. He had a, you know, Lou had a kind of humor, Jim had a kind of humor, and they were both funny, really funny, and great frontmen. And you know, Donnie I've known for years, and I really don't remember that I did that much for the Morels. I just went to see all their shows all the time, at the Hangar mainly. And
yeah, when you mentioned the Safari Room, that was probably the Symptoms.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Because
Yeah.
I was there every night.
Every night?
Every night.
They played there every night?
Well, they played Thursday.
Whether
Friday,
they played there or
Saturday.
not, you
Yeah,
were
exactly.
there
I'd
every
go
night.
anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Just waiting.
No matter who was playing. And my brother had a band in town, Dave Erb. Yes, Phil.
Yes.
What's your name? Yes, sir.
Phil Friend.
Retired.
Your brother taught me how to play guitar.
Okay.
And so that leads into Mike Watt,
Uh-huh.
who did artwork on 2 of his albums.
Right.
The Engine Room, the album cover is something.
So that's a good point. There's an album called Ball Hog or Tugboat by Mike Watt. And that was probably my favorite project, because the company, Mike is an independent artist, and every alternative band in America at the time knew him because he toured constantly. And so he made an album using almost everybody from that era, and it was incredible. And so he'd come in and he goes, I want this wrestling theme. And he had Raymond Pettibon do the cover, which was a friend of his. And then I got to figure out a new way to make a CD package, it's a unique package. You wouldn't find it it's kind of hard to find in stores, I imagine, because it's like half of an album and it flips. It's a really specific design. But for that one, each person's name, I would go to the Xerox machine and scan different type out of different old magazines and cut and paste this stuff. So it's, you know, I'll call it a work of art because it wasn't just, go, okay, here's the type, here's the lyrics and everything. We just really made it. I had a lot of control on that package. And then he did a tour for that show, and he brought like Dave Grohl and Eddie Vedder was on playing with him. He just had, you know, probably anywhere he went, he had these people that were in the area would come and play the songs with him maybe, but he's a good guy. I haven't seen him in years.
How about the engine room artwork?
Well, that,
his father? And then
yeah, his dad is on the cover of that package. It's it's not a rock opera, but it's got it's thematic through the record, and his dad is on the cover, and it's a naval theme. It is a story about being in the Navy, and let me think. Do you remember who's on the record?
Nels Klein.
Nels Klein, that's who I was trying to think of, because Nels is in Wilco now. And when they played here recently, that was one of my favorite concerts, probably. Because Nels Klein just is like on a different planet. He just takes it to the next level. Not that the other guys in the band aren't fantastic as well, but it was just a great show. So.
How did the Steve McQueen movie that it was based on?
Steve McQueen?
No, it wasn't Bullet. It was based in the Pacific.
Which one?
China. It was based in China.
Oh, the boat Sand Pebbles. Sand Pebbles.
Yes. That Mike Watt said he took a lot of inspiration from the Sand Pebbles.
Who did?
Mike Watt.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's cool to know. Wow. Huh. Yes, sir.
Mighty Wind is one of my favorite movies. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, me too. Any of those movies.
Well, what was the one before that? It was about with the metal guitar.
Spinal Tap? Spinal Tap? Yeah, the new one's coming out this week? Yes. So Mighty Wind is interesting because, who is it, Harry Shearer? So I had a boss that I didn't like very much, and he could not get through to Harry Shearer. This has happened a couple times. Like, Doug, we need you to do this because they don't like but they don't say it that way. They don't say they don't like what I'm doing. We just couldn't see eye to eye or something. So I think that's why I got that project. And when you do a soundtrack, that's even less design work because you're given photos from the film, stills from the film, you're given the key art from the poster. But the greatest thing about that is that I got to go to the private screening with the actors. So I sat right behind Michael McKean. It's like, that's who, Lenny, you know? Yes, that's how I always remember him. He's got such a great career. But just seeing, just being in the same room with those people, that was a treat. And then I did one, when you do soundtracks, I did the soundtrack for The Mask with Jim Carrey. And so with that one, they let you see the movie early. And I saw it without any of the effects, which was really interesting too. It's just all like him standing there with blue screen or something. I enjoyed working with doing soundtracks a lot. So here's another really funny story. I did The Cable Guy too. And so I had to go, for some reason the label which was great. They wanted me to take the package to the studio to show Ben Stiller. So I went to the studio. So here I am walking around like, wow, this is where movies are made. And they're like, I think I went, so Judd Apatow directed that movie. And then Ben was editing the movie. And they go, just go into the editing booth and talk to him. And so I did that, and it was like starstruck kind of thing. He's super nice. And then I went back to Judd Apatow's office, and he said, well, I think he said it was something about the track listing wasn't final or something. And he said, why isn't the track listing final? He was very nice. And I said, I don't know. They haven't given it to me yet. And he's like, wait a minute. And he got on the phone, and he goes, he's calling the product manager, and he goes, I don't care if she's in a meeting, I need to talk to her right now. And he just started reading her the riot act. He was just cursing a blue streak. And I was sitting there just kind of melting, going, I got to go back and work there. And just thinking on when I was going back, like, oh my God, this is going to be a nightmare. And nothing happened. It's like, it was just like, whatever. I guess that's how they talk in the film industry. But anyway, that was always one of my favorite stories about working in the industry. And I also did a package for Neil Finn, and that one went not in a good direction. But I did get to go to New Zealand, and that was a great trip, and Neil was very nice, but he always wanted his son's drawing on the cover of the album, and the label said, well, we're going to send a photographer over with Doug and do a shoot, because we really want you to see what that's going to look like. Which is just a stupid idea. So, according to me. So I went over to New Zealand, and we did what was a pretty good shoot, because the label picked the photographer, not me. And I knew the photographer, and I don't think he was right for this project. And so anyway, we did the shoot, came back, and trying to work back and forth. Of course, the timing is different between LA and New Zealand, and at that time, they're going, well, Neil's saying, yeah, I can't tell, the color seems off, and color calibration on computers at that time it probably still is a big thing. I just figure, that's good enough. But some people are like, wait a minute, that blue doesn't look the same as on my monitor. That was awful. So then what happened is one day, I guess I came to work, and they said, well, Neil's just taking the package to London and having it done there. And so the end game, what's on the cover? His son's drawing. And then to top this off, my boss came in. This is just, I'll never get over this. She said, Doug, Jeff wants to know what went wrong. This is Jeff Aroff, who ran Work Records at the time. I'm like, you don't have my back? You're asking me why I messed up? I didn't mess up, And that's why I left Sony. She said, and I said, I don't know if I can work here anymore. And she said, well, some people just, artists can't do this work. And it's true. It's so true. And not to bring everybody down. There's plenty of good people everywhere. But that was just, it left me with a bad feeling. Poor me. Yes, Shelley. Suck it up.
How did you come up with the cover for the Dog People? Because it seems kind of...
That EP with Wonderly, that...
The album.
Yeah. I don't think we have that up here. Yeah, we do have it up here. It's up here.
Okay.
How did I come up with that? I was a better artist back then. Let me see how I came up with that. Well, it was about, look, it's about a guy that's a conniver in the record industry, as far as I remember. And it just grew out of, like there's a Dial H for hero, there's a famous Monsters, there's Wonderly with a dog on him, drinking and cigarettes, and it just came out of my head. Just inspired by knowing the band and their sense of humor, and just that I drew a lot more back then, and I'm proud of that cover. It's one of my favorite drawings, really. But,
The back photo
is that one?
Canada, right?
Who's that? I don't know who that is. I did not do the back cover. Well, I wasn't there for that picture.
It's Steve Canada. He had a deal called, he had a caption on his photo was, "I love poodles." I figured. But then,
Was that a flyer?
I don't know.
Huh. Well, a lot of them had dog images, of course. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, Doug, do you have a clue how many projects you've been involved in, music-wise?
How many projects have I done? Well, according to Discogs, there was 190. And it's kind of funny going through there, and it's like when you do your taxes and you remember something. I had memories of Jim and I, we made the list of all of my projects so we could talk about it, and seeing some of them, I was like, there was one I didn't even remember doing. And it wasn't because I was doing drugs or anything. But
Alice Cooper?
Alice Cooper was I never met Alice Cooper. I probably, that would be way lower, the people that I met. But that's one that was a collection, so I designed an Alice Cooper album with stuff given to me.
Booker T and the MGs is on here.
That's a cool one, but I didn't really design that too much.
I noticed, wasn't there a Marvin Gaye over there?
I was glad I got that job, though. And I also did Horace Silver, and I did meet Horace Silver. Yes?
Can I ask you a question about that record?
No. About what?
Never mind.
Now what?
The Red Cross album you worked on,
Oh, uh-huh.
was that Sophia Coppola?
That is Sophia Coppola, and I was there.
And how did you get hooked up with them? Because they're...
Well, here's a funny story. They're all so funny. I don't hear a lot of laughing, but I worked for Frontier Records, which is an independent label, and there's a woman that runs it named Lisa Fancher. And let me think. John Silva was at one point her boyfriend. John Silva ended up managing Beastie Boys, Beck, Nirvana. He was, huge. He's like, "Doug, I need you to do this Red Cross album." I'm like, "Yes, I'd love to do that." And that's another record that's one of my favorites, because they have such a sense of style. They know exactly what they want. And Stephen was dating Sophia at the moment. So, and we had a cover, the original cover had a bunch of product on it. And it came out on Atlantic, and of course legal said, "You can't do that cover." So everything on the printed cover is, any product is covered up. But I have printouts of the flats with the original art, which is fun to have. But that was a fun project.
Do you have a copy of that?
Here? I have a copy of it here. Somewhere on that. Yeah, over there. Over there. What else? Anything else? All right, we're going to cut this off. We made it. Looks like we made it.